Check, 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 check. We're in. Mic'd. We're in.
Fuck, we did it, man.
We did it. We're here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Raise Your State. This is our first video, and we're going to take you on a little trip. I'm here with my good friend Michael Toru. My name is Alexander Rabu, and we are here to help you tune up, to share some honest conversation, and to give you a little glimpse into where we're going with this, and hopefully inspire you to join along with us on our mission to raise your state. We're going to start off with some beautiful music at the start of every one of these videos, and we'll see if we get shut down, but we're just going to give it a good old try and really celebrate something beautiful. So feel free to tune in with us. The song's about 7 minutes long. It'll help get your brain polished up and ready for our conversation. If you want to be on the same vibe as us, listen to the whole thing, take the time to enjoy life, stop and smell the roses. But if you want to skip ahead to the rest of the video cast, please feel free to do so. I hope that we have it all chaptered and indexed by now. So thank you, buckle up, and enjoy the ride. Holy smokes, that just happened. How you feeling, Michael?
Feeling tuned up.
I'm feeling vibed up.
Vibed up.
There's something about good music. I remember the first time I heard that song, took my breath away. And good music can do that. Good music, when you hear it for the first time, is just like, it almost gives you like reinforced hope for the world. You're just like, oh yeah, there's beautiful shit out there that I don't know about, and there's a bunch more out there that I've never even heard of, yet to be discovered. You know, it's like exciting. Whenever I find a really good piece of music, it just reminds me of like how much beauty is being created around the world by all these different people. And it's like this endless supply.
Mm-hmm. Because you consider that a 5-star track.
Oh, yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, this man is a music connoisseur. And for you, like 5 stars, like for a song to get to 5-star, that's not a small feat.
Yeah, there's a lot of music out there. And everybody's got musical preferences, and I'm not going to say that mine are better than anybody else's, right? It's whatever you like to listen to, and that's what matters to you. At one point, listening to Bon Jovi would raise the hair on the back of my neck when I was a little kid riding the school bus at, 13, right? 14, with my first little MP3 player. But now it doesn't do it for me, right? I need something else. And people's tastes evolve, but I find that there's some consistent pieces in music that can help you to discern what is like going to be more timeless sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Simplicity, melody, harmony. It's very, very simple, right? I forget who it was, but somebody said the sign of genius isn't what you can add next to a thing. It's when you can't take anything away from it without taking away from the whole sort of thing. So it's like this reductionist idea. Mm-hmm. And in good music, I find there's like so much space to swim around, right? Like you can listen to it at high volume and you can still have a conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've been on those dance floors where it's just like the music is so fucking loud, but you're there and you're bathing in it. And it's just like you can still have a conversation because it's so crystal clear. Mm-hmm. And then the opposite of that is muddy, confusion, disorienting, sounds of static, sounds of ripping. And these days, just like your typical mumble rap bullshit, where it's like, it's just like, I'm like, what? This isn't music.
I'm gonna be honest, most music is that, like, or a lot of music is not good. I'm gonna be honest, like the vast majority of stuff I hear, I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, totally. I imagine it's hard to make exceptional music.
Oh yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I can't make music.
But it's what people want too. Right? It's like people like junk food, right? Some people eat hamburgers every day, right? A hamburger every once in a while, okay. Every once in a while, I'll throw in a Drake track, Hotline Bling, I'll be dancing by myself, just like chilling. It's such a good song. Mm-hmm. But then I need to ask myself, is it actually nurturing my soul, right? And a lot of this music isn't. But a song like that last one, Air by Ninsen Okatsky, these fucking genius artists, you can play it again and again and again at all different situations, and it's perfect. There's no vocal to mess it up. There's no words to get wrong. There's no any part of it that's going to age or sound bad. 30, 40 years from now, it's going to sound fucking immaculate because it's an immaculate piece of art.
Yeah, to me, when I listen to that song, first of all, what you said about the vocals, it's amazing that it's that epic of a song and there's no vocals. But I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because we were listening to some, epic classical music before this, right? But I feel like with that song, like that's on par with like almost being, like you said, one of those songs that in 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, even people will still like remember and can appreciate that. Like it's a timeless song, it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not going to hear it on the radio, at least not here. Maybe in Germany, you're like, some cool European cities that are playing stuff like that. But it's not the appetite here, right? It's even the idea of playing a 7-minute song at the start of a YouTube video. How many people are going to listen to the entire song? How many people are going to take the time to slow down, to actually go through the song? How many people are going to skip ahead? How many of you guys skipped ahead to hear the conversation start, right? And that's part of what Raise Your State is all about. It's like reminding people of how to maintain a high state. And it's not by being frantic and trying to search for the quickest answer and get to the thing and how many windows can you have opened up. And it's about stopping to smell the roses. It's about centering yourself with this moment so that you can speak from your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Music is like, yeah, it feels like for me, yeah, music is one of the quickest ways to kind of to cultivate that, really. And for me, sometimes I find with like, we're talking about, you know, junk food, right? And like anything can be food, right? You know, watching YouTube videos is a food, you know, obviously a mango is a food, but like really they're just food that you're taking into your consciousness in one way or another.
Yeah.
And for me, sometimes I have to be honest, I feel conflicted that like I want to be watching like that junk food sometimes on, you know, YouTube, and some is worse than others, but there's this, for me, this like wanting to watch something when it's like, why not just like listen and like tune up? But it's interesting. I feel this natural draw to like the sugary things.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it's the sugary, you know, chocolate bar or the sugary YouTube video.
And YouTube, man, what a place. I mean, I'm the same way. And I'll get into these moments where there's so many tabs open and there's so many rabbit holes I'm going down of topics and things. And it's like this really shallow experience, and I'm frantically looking for depth everywhere. But it's me, the observer, who can't find depth because I'm the one casting the lens over the whole thing, and I'm frantic, right? But instead of addressing me and focusing on one subject, it's another tab. It's that thumbnail. It's, oh, what about that recommended video? Oh, I'm going to pause this one. I'll come back to it later. I'll open this one up. Oh, and then I've opened up 2 more, and that's our fucking society these days. There's so many distractions.
So many distractions. I find the worst for me is that I'll be watching, kind of playing off what you just said, I'll be watching a YouTube video, something that's actually like pretty engaging and I like, but I have this like, it's like my brain is like, you need even more dopamine or something. You need more of a hit. And I'll pick up my phone, I'll take it off airplane mode, and I'll start looking through my Instagram. And I'm like, then I catch myself that I'm watching this YouTube video, I'm looking at Instagram, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Yeah. Right?
I get the same thing, man. I get the same thing. I'll be listening to a YouTube video, it's classic, and then I'll be responding to someone on a message, and it's like I'm forcing my brain to do the hardest shit.
Yeah.
I'm like throwing distractions at it as quickly as possible. And it's just like, holy fuck, no wonder I'm feeling neurotic. No wonder I'm feeling ungrounded. But then going into a track like the one we opened this video with, you stick in some headphones, take a moment by yourself and just dissolve into it, and you will come out a shinier version of yourself, right? If you can find music that you connect with. And that's going to be part of the centerpiece of Raise Your State, because there's a lot of ways to tune up. A lot of ways to tune up. Some are nuanced, some are easier than others, some are very hard to do in modern society. But one of the easiest, most accessible ones is just listening to good tunes. You need to be able to find good tunes, right? And I'm sure everybody who listens to music, which is everybody, thinks that they listen to good music. And in many cases that's true, I suppose. But sometimes you haven't heard... Here's my analogy for good music. It's like some people have been going around their whole life eating a cheeseburger, right? They've just been eating a McDonald's cheeseburger, and that's music for them. And they're just like, it's fucking good. Mm-hmm. And it's good. A Big Mac from McDonald's, it's fucking tasty, right?
Oh, yeah, let's be honest.
And you think that that's music, and it's tasty, and it's junk food, and that's the mainstream. And you think that that's what there is. But then you stumble across an artisanal, handmade bun with a sautéed onion relish lamb burger with arugula and goat cheese, and you eat it, and it just sends you on a trip where you're like, holy shit, I didn't know what a burger was, right? And that exists in music. And the thing stopping you from finding that better song or that better genre is sometimes a lack of patience. It's like with classical music. Like my brother and I absolutely love classical music because our dad introduced it to us as kids, and he always said it's kind of the end of the rainbow when it comes to music. Like it is the holy grail. And we'd have late nights where you just like turn on Bach or Beethoven or Mozart or any of these guys, and it's hard to get when we were younger. Right? You're squirming. You want to be on your phone. You want that but Where's the big booties? Where's the break? Where's the drop, you know? And it had none of it. And now as I get older, it's just like, as it gets crazier and louder out there, I go into this classical music and it's like, holy smokes, it is an antidote for the modern age. It really is.
Mm-hmm. But I feel, yeah, I don't know, I feel this like weird aversion to listening to it sometimes. Like, even though when I'm listening to it, I'm like, ah, like my soul's like, I can feel like this like exorcism happening or something. Yeah. But it's weird that and it's not just classical music, like I was saying before, it's like many different things, but I feel like this weird aversion to these things that are like doing my soul. I know it's doing my soul good, but yet I want to go for the junk food a lot of times.
It's like meditating. How hard is it to meditate? It's fucking hard.
It's fucking hard, but it's so hard, but it's so simple, right? It's like literally like just get your ass on a couch. You can just be here, close your eyes, and just start to breathe. But it can be the hardest thing to do. Trying to get people to meditate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it's almost near to impossible.
So hard, man. Habits. We get crystallized in our habits, and it's like, I mean, we don't have to dive into this right now, but it's like the idea of like conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Any ideas that challenge the mainstream. Just like you can be crystallized in your habits to not want to meditate, you can be crystallized in your ideology and thinking, no, I know what it is, which closes you off to what it actually is, most definitely, or what it could be. But if you can't see that because you're stuck, then the world could be changing around you and you wouldn't even know. You'd be eating your dinner as the ship is sinking and you'd have no fucking idea, right? Mm-hmm. And with music, it's like, explore. Spend time exploring. Music it's a frequency, it's a spell, it's something that tunes you, right? And so picking the right ones to program your mind with is like, I think it's critically important.
Absolutely. Okay, here's my one thing though. I'm like, where do you find the good music? Like, you know, obviously I'm on Spotify now and I do find good music, you know, being a yoga teacher, like there's tons of good music for that. But like the music that you play, I'm like, I've never seen this music anywhere. And like, I feel like I could scour for years and I would never find some of the stuff that you found.
Yeah, you could. And there's tons of music out there that I haven't found.
That's true.
Right?
Sure.
You got to dive into that world and you need to have an ear for it. Like, I don't know, for me it's easy to listen to a song and within 20 seconds, 10 seconds even, know whether it's worthy of continuing to listen to or not. And that's how harsh it needs to be. If it's not excellent, if you don't love it, why is it in your life? Right? That's something my fiance told me, Sarah, about kind of the household and objects and stuff. She's like, if you don't love it, why is it in your life?
It's a Marie Kondo thing.
It's a Marie Kondo thing. It's a minimalism thing, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, it's the same with music. Life's too short for shitty music. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the hard things with COVID, lockdowns right now, is that there's no parties going on, right? And like the party, the music, the shared dance floor experience is like, it's a human experience that the world is missing right now. So part of why we're doing this, part of why we're doing Raise Your State, is to provide some excellent tunes, some real conversations to bring you into our living room to chat with us and to vibe up. And we don't have all the answers about how we're going to raise people's state, but we're starting that mission, and it's going to begin with epic music and just some truth. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Very excited to have you here. This is the first one we've ever shot, so let us know how it looks in the comment section. Subscribe, like, that stuff makes a difference. We're going to keep on making these things. But I wanted to ask you, Michael, a little bit about movement, because that's something I'm not very good at these days. I'm finding myself very stationary, very stagnant. And I know recently with lockdown restrictions, there's no yoga classes going on. Is that right?
Yeah, no yoga. I mean, there might be some places, like I think in Bali I follow my teacher there. There's different places in the world, but if you're in Canada, if you're in North America in general, I don't think there is. Yeah. It's mainly online, and it's a lot harder to get to. I've heard this from numerous people, like my partner Sarah, and lots of others. Like she's gotten into the rhythm now of doing a workout at home, but for a lot of people, it's hard to, like, you know, they go to the gym, they go to their studio because there's that aspect of community, right? And then when you're at home, it's like it's just not quite the same through a screen. Yeah. I mean, you can do your best. I try to do that with like my YouTube channel, like creating like, you know, as much of a community vibe as you can, but it's only so far you can go. Yeah, but movement is an interesting thing in terms of like getting into that regular habit and routine and like making it part of your, like, for me, it's like gotten to the point where like I have to do some sort of movement every day, or I feel like I just feel so tuned down. Like we talk about like being tuned up, right? Like I just feel, you know, and some days it's a lot less movement. Like today I only did like half an hour, but many days I do 4 or 5 hours of movement and like getting in the gym. But I'm on the excessive fanatical side of it, right? So not everybody's gonna be doing 4 or 5 hours, but and that's not every day. That might be once or twice or 3 times a week doing that to that extent. But even doing, you know what, doing half an hour of movement, like it doesn't have to be a lot. Yeah. Even just getting out for a walk, right? But like, this is getting into that routine. What's your resistance to it?
I think the biggest one is I have a tough time nurturing myself because I see the external issues as more important. And so I self-sacrifice in order to serve those. But then I end up falling because I'm not nurturing myself. I'm not filling my cup. And so it's this cycle where I'm like, work, relationship, building future plans, and the time with me is always the thing that gets turned down. And it's just, I don't know whether it's past traumas or what, but it's, failure to nurture myself. Because I know in my head the benefits. It's just hard to find that routine. And when I do, sometimes I'll be a week, 2 weeks of conscious movement every day, right? And that's honestly the way that I break it down for myself, is I don't tell myself, you know, move for 45 minutes, move for an hour, do this. I literally have a little checklist which just says conscious movement. And every day I do it, I just check it. And that can be dancing for 20 minutes. That can be going on a half-hour walk. That can be actually doing some weights and push-ups and stuff like that. But yeah, I find for me, it's just hard to do with all the crazy going on out there. Mm-hmm. Hard to prioritize it.
Yeah.
Because it's not a habit, right?
And it's interesting what we put our priorities and our habits into, right? And for me, it's like, it's a major priority. It's like the first one. It's like, for me, if I don't do my movement first thing in the morning, even like within like the first hour or two, it's just at the back of my head and it's kind of lingering there. And it's almost like I can't enjoy the day until I do it, which is interesting. Oh, wow. It's gotten better and I've been able to like kind of sink in, but it's kind of still there a little bit, like where I almost want to like get it out of the way. And it's an interesting thing. Like I've heard Joe Rogan talk about this too, where he's like, there's almost like no days, or like 50% of the time, like you might actually want to go and do the movement, and like the other 50% or even more than that, he doesn't want to do it. And I'm like the same way. Like even though I love it once I'm there and I'm in it, there's basically like no days that I actually want to do it, which is odd. Like there's like that inner lazy person, which is that it's like comfortable, wants to like read I love reading fantasy, right? And love it. I could just lie in bed and read fantasy all day, but I'm like, you got to get out in the real world and like do stuff. And if I do my movement, then I'm going to be a better person for myself, for my community, you know, doing work related things, whatever it is. But yeah, it's just so fascinating that I'm like, I just don't want to do it. But I'm like, okay, I tell myself like, okay, all you have to do is like step on the mat today. Our gym is luckily still open. As long as you have a mask on to go in, you can still get into the gym. Right. But it's like, just walk up to the gym is like my goal. And then once I'm in there, I know I'm going to do it. Yeah. But it's like that resistance sometimes is like, ugh.
Yeah. You're kind of, you have the benefit of it being your career.
Part of that too.
Right. Which keeps you in it. Like part of your life focus is health and wellness, right? And fitness. Mm-hmm. So you're surrounded by a community that echoes it back to you. I think a lot of people are at home right now and they don't have that reinforcement, I guess, from people around them. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to the gym, right? Because a lot of people aren't. What's a good way for people to stay active at home? I don't mean like, I don't know, specific routines or anything like that, but I mean more like mentalities, like getting past that even that resistance that you have, even though you're kind of a pro, of not really wanting to do it. Like, what are some tips or some things you could recommend for others, do you think?
It's a good question. I mean, this is like, I dive into this all the time. Like, how do you get yourself to do the things that you don't want to do? And I actually just watched an interesting YouTube video about this. So it's like that was one of the non-junk food things I was watching. Nice. And he was talking about kind of what I talked about earlier, is like, just step on the mat, or, you know what I mean? Like, if you like make the bar so friggin' low, like just ridiculously low,
right,
that like all you have to do is unravel your yoga mat. If you don't have a yoga mat, whatever it is, metaphorical yoga mat, just step into your fitness space, and you won already. And then it's like, well, like, okay, I'll turn on this YouTube video and do some YouTube yoga or whatever. And then like you just take that next step, but make the bar, and maybe for like that one day, like maybe you don't make it past stepping on the mat. But if you but if you have, you know, like the mat is a good example, because it's like, it's a fitness tool, you could say, right? So if you step onto that mat, then you're most likely going to continue. Like, it's very few people are going to be like, well,
I did it.
Screw it. I set the bar low and I did it.
Coca-Cola.
You know? Like, I mean, you could, but like, you just know that you're just not living to your highest potential. Because that act of having to step on the mat, that low bar, it forces that awareness, that consciousness, right? And you have to think, then for you to step off the mat and drink that Coca-Cola, you have to, like, I mean, most of us would, I would think, like, after that moment, you have to really consider your actions and be like, oh shit, like, what is my resistance? Like, why do I want to almost like sabotage myself? Why do I not want to move, right? Yeah. So that's part of my biggest thing, is just make that bar, like, you know, like in high jump. I remember in high school, like, having to do like high jump, you know, the one where you do that weird loop thing, and then you run, and then you have to like jump over the bar onto the mat. I just remember smacking myself so much. And I'm like a short guy too, so I was like, just terrible. But yeah, make that bar, like, just so you'll get over every single time.
I think that's why on my checklist, I don't have, you know, workout for an hour. I have conscious movement, right? I need to be conscious of having movement in my body. It can be simple as stretching, right? But a 10-minute stretch turns into a bit of dancing, turns into push-ups, right? And if I tell myself I'm going to do 5 push-ups a day, it's never just 5, right? Because you do it and you're like, 5's weak. Like, I'm going to do another 10, and maybe I'll do 40 today. And it's just like, it's starting with something to build momentum. And I think a lot of people right now feel like they've lost their momentum. And I know that's me a lot of the times. So part of the reason I want to have these conversations is to bring encouraging people around me to help build brick by brick these beautiful habits, so that you have the music, so that you have the movement, so that you have the stopping to smell the roses, the self-mastery. You have all these different elements so that you can stay tuned up, to have a bit of a tool belt for when the darkness comes. You can remain high vibe and sail over that shit.
You know, and exactly what you said, though, is that's what happens too, right? If you're like, 5 push-ups, that's my goal. Like, most people aren't going to get to 5 and be like, well, screw it. Maybe first day you do 5. But then like the second day you're like, well, I could push myself. I'll do 7 today, or whatever it is. You know, and push-ups are just a metaphor for whatever it is. But it's that low bar, once you step on the mat, whatever it is, then you build that little bit of momentum, and then momentum feels good. And when you keep going, then those like endorphins start to come into your body, and like your brain likes that. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But what I was going to say too is that one of the barriers to people doing, you know, movement and, you know, stepping onto the mat and having that feel good hormone endorphin rush is that they can get it from their phones. But the phone and, you know, technology is not, it's not a good form. I don't know, good and bad is interesting, but you know what I mean? It's not the same as moving your body. Yeah. It's not the same as like if you're doing a full half-hour yoga practice and releasing those hormones. It's not the same as being on your computer, but the computer, it tricks you a little bit, right? To have that little bit of a release, so it kind of satisfies it, but then also makes you feel shitty at the same time. It's interesting.
Yeah, and it's harder than ever if you don't have the rituals for staying active and fit, and then you're seeing all the fit people on your phone. It's a double whammy, because you're also like, Why can't I do it? Why aren't I like them? Look at all their six packs, right? My world is collapsing, but their world is shiny and squeaky clean. What's the matter with me, right? All that judgment.
Yeah, I mean, the online world is insidious, and the judgment part, I think, is the worst sometimes. I've had like, many friends that I've met online, excuse me, and some of them I'm like, oh man, like my mind goes into that judgment mode. I'm like, they have X amount of followers and they, have their shirt off all the time, or they're doing this, that, and the other. And I'll judge them. Like, Brian, for our company, one of our ambassadors. And with him and I talked about it, but I like hardcore judged him before. I was like, oh, like this dude, he's probably like kind of a douchebag or whatever it is, right? And when I'm like talking about this, and he's like literally the nicest guy, like the nicest guy, like the most quality human being, right? But by being, because he has so many followers on Instagram, he's super jacked, he's got cool tattoos, you name it. I was like jealous. I was
living the dream.
He's living the dream, right?
Yeah.
And then you meet somebody like him, and he's living a great life. But he's not living a perfect life. He's got his own shit going on.
We all do.
As we all do, right? So behind that Instagram filter is always that real life, man.
Yeah. Behind this video, our lives are secretly falling apart.
Everything's crumbling.
Just kidding. They're pretty good despite the crazy.
Yeah.
We've got some pretty good things in our lives. Good things to be thankful for. But yeah, I think for me this video cast is coming at a good time where, like I said, I need to rebuild brick by brick and share these little, tips and tricks with fellow people. It's like if I can introduce you to some of the music that I find very tuning, you can introduce me to some of the movement that has helped you, right? And little habits. And we can find other people and stick them together and share that information. That is a tribe. And that's what we're missing. Part of what's happening right now is like we're so individualistic. We're all doing our own thing, right? You're a baker and I'm a plumber and he's a policeman and he's a firefighter, and none of us have this common ground. And so in your yoga community, there's a common ground, right? In my other business, there's a bit of a common ground with people, but it's we've lost the tribe. And so that's one of the things that I want to help bring back and help share. And that's why Raise Your State is more than just a video. That's why it's also a group. That's why it's also a brand. And that's why it's going to evolve into so much more. Because there, as far as I can tell, there isn't an easy modern day group that focuses on tuning up and bridging in things like spirituality without going into religion necessarily, and bridging in things like frequency and vibration and flow without it sounding too hippie, and bridging in things like, nowadays it's popular, but psychedelics and plant medicine for healing traumas and that kind of stuff. And I feel like even if a lot of these topics have been talked about before, we need to echo them in our way, because it's going to connect with different people in different ways. And most importantly, building this content for ourselves. I think that's the only way you can kind of keep doing it, is if you love the process and if it's for you, right? Mm-hmm. Then you're winning from the start. But before even making this video, there was a lot of apprehension. What if people don't care? What if they don't listen? What if they don't think it's important? What if? All this doubt. And I think that represents so many people sitting back at home who haven't done that thing, who haven't expressed themselves because they're so worried about what if, right? And I got to the point with the world being shut down and everything where I'm just like, fuck it. Like, if we don't start doing it our way and contributing in our way and having these conversations and building something we can be proud of, then we'll be sitting on the sidelines disappointed as the world just passes us by.
It's true.
And I can't handle that.
But it's very easy to make up all the excuses. And you and I did before this. Both of us were like even more on the train. For context, one of our friends, he was more on the train of starting a podcast. And both you and I were more on the train of like, oh, it's going to be too much work. It's not the right time. What if, blah, 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 all the different things. And, we don't have the right equipment. We don't have this. Like, by the way, we're shooting on an old camera. We have like a couple phones. Like, it's like as ghetto as it gets, really. We're going to make it as beautiful as we can for you. But we have and having all these different excuses, and then it's like at the end of the day, it's like fuck it, like just set up the tripods, put the cameras, click them to go, and like do a little bit of setup, but like just do it.
Yeah, and for reference, we were trying to psych ourselves up to start, and we decided to watch some of Joe Rogan's early podcasts. And man, they are pieces of shit. They're so bad.
So bad.
But bless him and his mission and the persistence, because that's what it looks like to do it proper and to become huge. And I think one of the biggest successes of Joe is that for the most part, he seems like he can really be himself doing his work, right? It's like how he can pump out so many podcasts is none of it's scripted. It's a good conversation, and he's able to smoke weed and have a drink and do whatever, right? And I think that's real freedom. Mm-hmm. And so we have to start, and we have to do it our way. Just like while we're playing music at the start of this, just like while we're deciding to not monetize this, because the mission isn't about that. We'll make money other ways. This is actually about creating a vehicle for helping people to tune up. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to tuning up, aside from music and movement, like what are other areas that you consciously think of in your life and focus on?
Nature.
It's
a huge one. I mean, and it's one that is progressively, I think, in our society becoming neglected. And with COVID, I mean, I think our community has been pretty good, to be honest. Like, I think a lot of people on Vancouver Island, where we live, get outside and take advantage of that. Maybe not as much when it's raining, but it can be easy, especially if you're in the city. Like, there's not even nature close to you. You don't have access to a car or something. It's like hard to find nature. And it's just like so detrimental to our mental and emotional health. Like, I'd almost go as far to say that, like, if you're not getting out in nature regularly, that, like, it's going to really affect your mental and emotional health to, like, the point where, like, you're going to be either borderline depressed or depressed. Like, you're not, and by what do I mean by regular? I mean, ideally once a week, like at least once a week, a solid session.
Solid session once a week.
At least once a week, you know what I mean? But like, even if you can only go once every couple of weeks, but like that would be like the absolute bare minimum. I think once a week is even like kind of skimping, to be honest.
Yeah. But again, not everybody lives in areas where they have access to it. And in a lot of cases, it's because they haven't prioritized it as being important, right? They moved to the city for that job. And when they chose an apartment, it wasn't high on the list that they need to be able to get out and walk around and enjoy the neighborhood, right? They're there for the job, doing the thing. And now that the world's shut down, I think there's a lot of people trapped in areas where they're really realizing that they kind of fucked up, right? Like they didn't make the right choice with where they wanted to be. And bless you all. I mean, you couldn't have foreseen what was about to happen. But one of the things I'm most grateful for is our access to nature here. That's for sure.
So grateful. What you just said actually brought up for me. I want to hear about your experiences with nature, but first of all, I was listening to Joe, and he had Dave Chappelle on, and Dave Chappelle was talking about how people are having to live with their choices now. Like,
right.
This is what this has brought on, is that you're having to live with everything that you have in your life, especially like kind of at home, right? And like all the things that you've decided to bring into your home, and even beyond that. And he was saying, well, like he's found out that he's happy with his choices and what he's chosen to bring into his home, into his life in general. But I think that's like really true, that like COVID has like kind of forced us to, like, in some ways, obviously you can distract yourself through your computer or your phone at home, but like it's forced you to kind of have to be like reassess your life a little bit.
You can't distract yourself nearly as much.
Not nearly as much, right? So it's very interesting.
Trapped at home, yeah.
Trapped at home. But what I wanted to ask you is, like, you love, and you've actually introduced me even more getting back into camping more, but you and Drake and Adrian, by the way, are good friends and core members of Raise Your State, and they'll be creating more content as well. But you guys love going out, and maybe we'll splice in right now. Actually, I have some footage, but
do you?
Yeah, I have some footage. We'll splice in some footage right
B-roll.
now, a little B-roll, baby, of the axes and being out in the forest and having a good old time with the boys.
Yeah.
And how cathartic that is. Like when we went out for those 2 days, man, I was like,
totally.
And
I find it so hard to work out and to be physical back home. But when I'm out in nature, like, give me an axe and I will chop wood until every muscle in my body is like in pain, because it's functional. You're doing something. I have a tough time with, I don't know, I have a tough time with exercises for the sake of exercising, like lifting up a weight, to curl a weight. Yes, so that you can be stronger and or look more appealing or whatever. There's a bunch of different things, but definitely to actually be stronger and more vital. But it's just not enough for me. Whereas like swinging an axe to chop wood to heat you, that's also an activity, that to me, like, I get it, I see it, like, I will fucking go. There's a purpose to it. But I think that's what gets in the way of me a lot of the times. And that's why I love camping. Me and my brother Asian and Drake, and we've really got into it this last year. I think Drake has the record. I think he went out 12 times or something this year. Not to tell you himself, but I think it's about 12 times. And it's primal. When you're heated by the fire, when you're out there in nature and you haven't checked your phone in a couple days, right? When you just hear that white noise of the ocean behind you and it just polishes your mind from all the bullshit and the pings and the ticks and the clicks and just everything begging for your attention, it's incredible. The sound of a crackling fire while you're out in nature, and just the bugs and the grasshoppers and shit like that, like it's like a wet dream for an audiophile. Like, it's like sex for your ears. It's crazy. You sit down and you close your eyes and you listen to this. Oh my God, that's what we're missing, right? And the opposite of that is that constant construction that's happening in a city near you, right? That jackhammer in the background, that weed whacker or leaf blower, whatever it is. It's just, being in cities takes a toll, and the one we don't think of is noise pollution. And so the biggest thing about getting out into nature, even if you're not camping, just going for a fucking walk, like, clear your mind with clear noises, beautiful sounds, right? I think it's so important. I'll have a mind full of clutter, and then I'll go to the beach and just listen to the waves, and it's just like, makes everything better.
Makes everything better. And I think for me too, it's like, either I don't take my phone. A lot of times I do take my phone, but I'll like have it on airplane mode and be like, ideally actually I go to a place that doesn't have reception.
Ideally.
Because one of the things that I found with myself is that, you know, if I'm in these beautiful spots or whatever I'm doing, I have this like little routine on my phone. I think a lot of us do, where I turn it on and then I check my email, I check my Instagram, I check Facebook, and I'll do that. Sometimes I do it like a neurotic, like a fucking cocaine addict or a heroin addict. Yeah, like scrolling. I'm like scrolling nature in nature. I'm like, oh, that's a really beautiful mountain. I'm like in the trees.
This is a more beautiful mountain.
Yeah, right.
This mountain sucks.
Oh my God, but.
Or you see something beautiful and right away you think, I need to capture it so that I can show it other people and prove to them that I was here because I was here, but you're not here because you're there with this lens between you and what you're seeing. And it's the devil's in the details, man. Like, it sneaks into your daily life and it doesn't seem that bad, and you realize that this fucking electronic nuisance has been in your space, taking your time and your attention, sucking your energetic life force. And yeah, it's crazy, man. You pop open your phone and you whiz through Instagram and you check some person out for fitness, and then someone's in a bikini and oh my God, and you click on her photo and all of a sudden it's more bikini photos, and her friend answers, nice booty, and you click on that and it's all booty pics, and then all of a sudden you're in softcore porn on your fucking phone within 2 clicks, and your little monkey mind is just and it's just so fast.
It's so fast.
And these Instagram booty ladies and everybody else in between, they know that that's what gets the looks, that's what gets the views, that's what people like. And I don't know, man, it's too much for a mind. I think about it overloading my mind as an adult who sees all this, who grew up experiencing dial-up and all this coming into my life as I was quite conscious about it. Mm-hmm. And I think about these kids, man. Think about these 10-year-olds with cell phones and an internet connection. Jesus.
Oh my God. I think about...
It's too much.
I think about my nieces and nephews, and, well, I mean, they're on YouTube a lot, but then it's, you know, a game called Fortnite, and there's all these other video games and stuff, and I'm like, what is that doing to our brains? And this is an age-old question. Like, this might be one of the oldest, you know, like, of our generation, or even beyond our generation, like, you know, video games, right? It's such a hot topic, right? And like, I'm not here to debate. Like, I don't think video games are the devil. Like, I think you know, video games play a role. Like, they can be good, but like, should like 5 and 7 year olds and 10-year-olds be playing like excessive hours of this? I don't know, man.
It's a slippery slope too, because like, I'll confess, like I've played thousands of hours of video games, thousands over the years, not hundreds, thousands, right? And like that 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. I don't know if I've done 10,000 hours, but like I've done a couple thousand hours of video gaming, and like I wish I could play the violin as good as I would if I put all that towards practice, right? That'd be convenient, but it doesn't work that way. And I have some excellent memories video gaming, because strangely it can be very social.
You can be.
Right? And I think the human experience is changing, and I think it's very easy to be hard on ourselves about all these different things, but I think that life needs to be this fluid dance, and you need to be able to forgive yourself, and you need to be able to have a pulse in where you're at. And if it's been 3 days of playing Skyrim and flying around, try to kill dragons and collect a princess, and you haven't fed yourself or washed yourself properly, and the pizza boxes are stacking up, then you're at a far distance from manifesting your dream woman, right? You're at a far distance from manifesting that brilliant idea that will come from you as you create space for it, because you're filling your space with something else. And you could insert anything else with that. Working 40 hours a week, right? Sports, right? Even worse, fantasy sports, right? Jumping into relationship after relationship. Like there's so many distractions, and this is why we need the tribe. This is why you need someone in your life or on the internet that you're following to tell you, hey, like, spend a little more time on you. Hey, a little less time in the video game. Because I don't think these things are bad. I think that they're just too much for our little minds to properly deal with. It's like, can you only scroll on Instagram for 20 minutes a day? It's fucking hard, right? It's really hard.
Oh, I set the limit for an hour, and I'm shocked every time, like almost every day when I get to that hour. And some of it is like work-related stuff, you know, like doing influencer marketing or whatever it is. But I'm going to be honest, a lot of times I'm tricking myself.
Yeah.
And it's a slippery slope.
Deep research.
Deep research. I find like this morning is a good example. Like I woke up, I have something going on with my foot that I told you about, and then I had to call the podiatrist. Podiatrist is such a funny word. It sounds like I'm getting like I'm a grandpa or something.
Sit on my knee. We'll bunk your knee with this.
Yeah, right? Oh, God. But anyways, I turned it on for that. So I'd gone through, did like a beautiful morning routine, had, you know, breath work, listened to some really high vibes. So Veggio while I was doing my meditation, did some journaling, was feeling good, tuned up. And then I was like, okay, I need to call the podiatrist, whatever got on there. But then I did that little routine that I talked to you about of going on my phone. And then I got like sucked down, and I did call him eventually, but I got sucked down a rabbit hole of like on Instagram, man. And there was like, I think I have it posted in my story, you know, but it's like, there's like just all the dumb, funny shit. But like, like a bulldog that was running down the stairs and then like tried to jump over a gate and just eat shit, which is hilarious. But I'm like, and that wasn't the only thing I looked at. Like there's multiple things, and I'm like, what am I doing with did I need to spend that 10 minutes? Like, I'm never gonna get that 10 minutes back.
Dopamine, man.
It's not all bad again, you know, but I don't know, it just makes you consider at least, like, what are you spending your time on, right?
That's a good point. Let me check the camera real quick. Yeah, it's tough to be a human these days and have an internet connection and have to pay bills and have to figure out what love is and all this stuff, and then you throw this lockdown in the mix. It's a challenging time, man. It's a really challenging time, but the way I look at it, and truthfully the way I look at it, is that this time is here to challenge us, and it's for us. It is our challenge, and that is why we're here. That's why we've come here. To a lot of people who think we're just random goo that's evolved out of the ocean to become these human beings who have done all these things, that's going to sound like crazy talk. But I think it's our mission, because you can't be the hero without having a dragon to slay. And the world is asking every one of us, every one of you, to stand up and to make a difference. If you don't like it, we have to stop shaking our fists. We have to do something about it. And if the darkness wasn't here, would we be so eager to shine a light? I don't think so, man. We wouldn't need to. We could just sit back and be passengers. And part of the problem these days is that as the world is careening towards a bit of chaos, people are just passengers, and they're expecting Donald Trump to fix it, or Biden to fix it, or one of these fucking guys to fix it. And Elon, right? Bezos. And I don't think it works that way. The moment you acknowledge somebody else as the person to fix it is the moment you take away your personal power and say, I'm not the one to fix it. I'm not responsible. I just showed up here. All of that is turning yourself into a disempowered victim, right? Yeah. Whereas if you claim responsibility and you say, this world is this way for me, and in some way because of me, and you have that ultimate ownership over it, well, then you can actually start thinking about what you're going to do to fix it. I think one of the ways that I came to create Urban Mana and even Raise Your State is just by this knowing that the world needs saving. The world needs help. There needs to be hero warriors of light willing to give themselves, to tune others up, to lift others up. And we need to do our part. And all of this as the framework of I will help be the hero to save the world, and encouraging you to help do the same thing, and him and everybody. It's through that responsibility that I've had these downloads when I can create space. And these things come to me because I've taken on the responsibility, right? It's like, okay, I'm here to be a tool for the universe to unfold, and I am stepping into it instead of watching it. And from that space, you start to recognize more synchronicity, a little more magic in every day. And if you can get past fear and stay in that confident, loving state, knowing that everything is going to be fine, I find that your vision is uncorrupted as these things line up, and you can almost see which way to go. It's like the evolution of this. It's like meeting you. It's like when you get it right, it just jives, right? And you don't always have to do it. You just need to kind of be in the right space at the right time, and you kind of need to just connect things instead of always doing so much, right? And that's why when I get sick now, or something happens like that puts me on my ass, I don't think, oh no. I do for a little bit. I think, oh no, I can't make things. I can't do stuff. I can't. What if I can't change the outcome? And stepping back and slowing down is always the way that better things or truer things or things in more alignment start to come my way. And they come effortlessly the moment I slow down. And it's like, aha, that's how it should happen. Like the other night of us hanging out, the idea of bridging music into this conversation and how we're going to feature that, it just popped out of the universe, right? It just came down to us. And
Mary Jane might have had a little bit to do with it.
We might have been smoking a little bit of dope, but sometimes you need to smoke a bit of dope.
Kind of lubricates it a little bit.
Yeah. Or have a glass of wine, right? And it's like this idea of, are video games bad? It's like, is alcohol bad? Well, yeah, in a perfect Garden of Eden, would you have, Fortnite? Would you have Skyrim? No, right? You wouldn't need them. In a perfect Garden of Eden, would you have Jaeger bombs and alcohol? No, and I don't necessarily think you should be doing Jaeger bombs, but a nice glass of wine with friends or two, if that's your poison or that's your pick, done in a good spirit for the right reasons, not because you're depressed on the couch by yourself, but because you're celebrating, it can grease the wheels and it can help something magical evolve. But you have to give yourself that space so that you're not judging yourself all the time.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Mary Jane's an interesting one. Like, I've had such an interesting relationship with Mary Jane since, I'm 32 now, since I was 15. So over half of my life smoking marijuana to some degree, and there's been periods within that where I haven't smoked it for 6 months. I haven't even smoked it for a year, and then it kind of comes back in, and it really can, done in the right context, it really can serve you. But I find that I have this tendency for myself to, if I'm smoking it, I go to the nth level, right? And I wake up the next day and I'll have this like weed hangover, and I just feel like shit. I'm like, why did I do that? And then it's like feeling detuned, right? And it's just this constant dance with it. And I remember when I was in the state though, where I was like, I needed it. I was like straight up addicted. Anybody that tells you that you can't get addicted to marijuana, I'm like, that is like the biggest fat lie on this planet.
Yeah, that's a lie.
That is a giant lie.
It's a slippery mistress that'll butter your bean until you've just forgotten what it's like to be sober, right? And the more buttering of your bean that happens, the harder it is to not be buttered up, because this world seems a little bit prickly, right? You smoke a bit of weed and everything seems to, and you're a little more insulated, a little more cozy with that nurturing energy. But if not used properly, it can dull your edge, right?
Dull your edge, man.
But when used properly, it can be an amazing creative tool that helps you to release, right?
Yeah.
If you're making a little too much mustard out there in your job, and you're making gadgets, and you're full of numbers and data and demands and obligations and taxes and just all sorts of shit, you vape a little bit of excellent marijuana and you play the right song and you have the right friend there, and it can be an incredible experience. But it's easy to get the song wrong, and it's easy to get the marijuana wrong in many ways. The dosage, the type, the fucking where you got it from, how it's been treated, how you're smoking it.
How much is the huge one. I mean, actually the quality of the marijuana too, for sure.
Yeah.
But
the thing with quantity is like, it's such a forgiving plant, right? Like, we smoked 8 joints that night and it didn't kill us, Oh, yeah. Of course we were a bit detuned the next day, right? Yeah. And that's when you pat yourself on the back, you say, I fucked up, but not that bad, right? Yeah. You drink a bottle of Jack Daniels, you'll wake up in a ditch with your pants around your ankles having shit yourself, Like, it's devastating, like destroying families, Like, it's so dangerous. Yeah. So, I don't know, man. It's that same thing we were talking about with, like, discipline and focus, and, like, do you play video games for an hour or 2, or do you play them for 3 days, right? Do you do 30 minutes of yoga a day, or do you do 3 hours? Like, if you're doing 3 hours a day every day, at some point you're probably going to pull something, or, right? Maybe that's a bad example. Yoga's pretty badass, but like weightlifting, right? Like, you can't weightlift 5 hours a day. Like,
or even with like movement. When I said earlier too that I was doing like 4 or 5 hours of movement, it's not like
consistent. Yeah.
It's not consistent at all. Like, I'm like,
scrolling between.
Scrolling between. Actually, sometimes like looking at the people in my movement community getting inspired and like doing different things, or a lot of it's like, different stretches and like a lot of mobility work. But it's true though that if you're doing too much yoga, like, people can take anything to a level where it's no longer serving you.
Totally.
100%.
Moderation, man. Moderation. All that stuff that they tell you when you're a kid is like the wisest shit, but when you're a kid, you just like, you can't hear it. There's like so many words of wisdom where you're like, oh, they're like, you just need to follow your heart. You're like, whatever, like, you go through your life, all of a sudden you go through a spiritual awakening, you're like, oh my God, it's all in my heart and my intuition, and it's all just fear and love. Whoa, and it just like blows your mind. Go with your gut. It's like, it's profound.
Actually, go with your gut, I found, is like one of the most profound ones for me. Like, so profound. Like, in so many different respects, but like, just in, like work is a good one. Everyone can relate to that. Like, there's just been so many times where I've been offered money to like do different things, different projects and stuff. And like, yeah, your gut, man, you can just rely on it. And like, pretty much, there hasn't been a single time where my gut has told me like, like, you shouldn't do that. Like, and then I have done it and just like, fuck it, I'll do it for the money or whatever. And then it never turns out well. Yeah. Right. And then like us working together, or, like that, my gut was like, oh yeah, this is good. It's in alignment. Right. But your gut, man, like there's so much intelligence there. And it's not just
So
here.
much
It's like,
intelligence.
this is like, your gut could even...
Intuition.
Intuition.
It's intuition, right? And most people are so disconnected from their intuition. I know I was for a very long time, until you can get quiet enough, still enough, until you know what it sounds like. And you need to create opportunities to get in touch with that. And I did that through psychedelics personally, through psilocybin. And after repeated sessions, I got to that empty space in myself where the whisper that came in, I realized was coming through me and to me from somewhere greater. And that it was me, but it was more than me. And that it was the best of me. And that it was bringing genius down to this earth through me. And that was my intuition, fully unbridled. Mm-hmm. And I get depressed when I'm going through my life or going through my week and I haven't made anything. And I realize it's because my channel to intuition is just like clogged up with or like fucking scrolling or whatever, right? Just like, we're shutting down the world. Everyone's going to die. I'm like, fuck. And then I wonder why I'm not creative. And it's because I'm not returning to the truth and the fact that I say the fact, but for me, the fact that we showed up for all this and that we've only ever been, and the idea of us not being is absolutely crazy. And so you have to go forward with confidence that like everything's going to be taken care of. It has been. Whenever we ever been really let down, as bad as it's gotten. Mm-hmm. Never really been let down. I'm still here. You're still here watching. We're still here. And so we need to trust that that's going to happen moving forward and just try to shine brightly. And one of the things I always try to recenter myself with is that regardless of all the problems in the world, not to be overwhelmed by them, because I don't even need to know the solutions to fix those. I just need to present myself as an empty cup, ready to receive the information as it comes to me.
That goes back to what we're talking about kind of earlier, though, is like being able to be that empty cup and not constantly filling your cup with junk food and with shit. And like, what are the tools for that? Going out in nature, doing some conscious type of movement, eating maybe less food, like maybe try a little like intermittent fasting for a day.
Fasting.
Right? Like less food. Like we don't need nearly as much food as we're eating, man. Like it's been like tons of people eat one meal a day and they just like thrive. They eat one like decent sized meal a day. Yeah. Healthier foods, high vibe foods, high prana foods, whatever language you want to put. Can do wonders.
Yeah, and the way you feel about it matters so much too. It's like, I think one of the terrible things about Western culture is that you can find a book of anybody's opinion about everything that's good for you and bad for you, right? It's like, just eat potatoes, starches are going to save you, or never eat legumes, they're going to kill you, or
be a carnivore.
Be a carnivore, you have to eat flesh food all the time because that's definitely the best. And no, it's just sunlight and breathing and air. No, okay, you need to do vegan, you need to do... There's so many things, and then they tell you fat's bad for you, no, it's good for you, sugar's bad for you, no, and there's so much confusion, and in this confusion we doubt ourselves, so that as we're looking how to feed ourselves, we have this doubt of like, I don't think this is really great, I should be eating keto, I should be eating this way, that's the way I should be eating. And in that moment you betray yourself from being present and accepting what you're actually doing and consciously entering that experience, right? It's you're living somewhere else because of the context you have inside your head. And it's like, I went vegetarian for a couple of years, and I was at a family dinner. My family's French, and they love to cook, and they love to celebrate, and I was there, and they were serving food, and I wasn't participating, and it felt so alienating, but it also felt like I wasn't honoring the situation, and I was talking to people with this self-righteousness that I knew the answer, right? That it definitely not eating meat. And I was giving my culture and my family the middle finger because I was disregarding all the love that they had put into it, right? And this is where I think the dance in life matters. And maybe for some people eating meat is 100% no-go, so you don't have to dance there. But I mean with everything, it's like, can you have a chocolate bar and just enjoy it? Or do you eat that chocolate bar and you hate yourself for the rest of the day?
Shame, guilt, yeah.
Right? It's like the enemy is the way you perceive what you should have done, your expectation, right? Instead of flowing with it. So it's a tricky dance, this whole thing, and they don't teach this shit in school. You need to hope that you find it somewhere along your scrolling, right?
No, absolutely. And I really do. It's an interesting point that you bring up about, putting like love into something. And it's true that you can really taste food that has been loved, and the people that cooked it like put in, their best into it, right? And then you can, like, vice versa, like you can tell when somebody is like not put love into food and it's just been like haphazardly put together or whatever, right?
Totally.
And even if it is like fast food, but it's been made lovingly, I don't know, I think it makes a difference.
It makes a difference.
This might sound like hippy dippy and like, like crystal loving or something, but
check out my amethyst.
Check out my giant amethyst. But I don't know, I feel like there's something there.
There's something there, man. And the French are known for their joie de vivre, just like enjoying life. And, my great-grandparents, not that they were the ideal vision of health, but I mean, they drank wine and brandy and, danced and all sorts and just lived a pretty good life until a very late age. And there's a lot of people dying younger and they're just holding on to things really tightly. They're just, people counting every calorie and just like everything is so controlled. And it's like, I don't know if we're meant to live that way. That's strict, right? That's why I use the analogy of like, you need to dance through life instead of march. Because if you march, you're in this rigid motion where you step on a rock and life throws a splash of water your way and you're tripping, and it's not, if it's a dance, you can duck and dive and move and swerve and forgive yourself and love yourself and move about it that way. And I feel like everything just evolves a little more beautifully and it's more respectful to the people around you. Mm-hmm. Would you go to if you're in a foreign country and a family was presenting you with food and you say, oh no, that it doesn't line up with my beliefs and this and that, and the creature's dead, it's presented to you, it's been cooked with love, it's a moment of sharing, of breaking bread, of can you enjoy, can you trust that everything's going to be okay, right? And of course some people shouldn't move on some of their morals, but yeah, I think there's a little too much marching going on in society, not enough dancing.
A lot of marching. I find myself getting to that marching mode all the friggin' time, like literally all the time, where I'll be like going to the gym and like I'm recounting, like the walk to the gym is like this time where like I kind of recount my life and what I've been doing and all these different things, and like being like, oh well, yesterday you didn't, get in this certain type of exercise or this stretching, and like if we're talking just about movement, and like this judgment, I'm like, well, I'll do better today, like I gotta like make sure I get it in that, and then like figuring out this like puzzle piece of like how I'm gonna fit in all, like, because I have this in my mind, like what's the perfect amount of movement. And I'm just saying, for movement, for yoga, whatever it is, as this example, but it can be taken for anything in life. But like for me, in my mind, I've created this what is perfect, and if I don't achieve that, even like a little bit below, that's somehow shit. Yeah. It's just crazy. Yeah. It's just like this militant freaking march, man. And I'm like, you're right, you gotta dance through life. And even like last week when to the listeners that we smoked a little bit too much weed, we went out in the woods, we smoked some DMT, and did some mushrooms, and it was a beautiful experience. But I felt myself, because I did less movement that week, less movement at the gym, less yoga practices, but we were huffing it down, through part of the West Coast Trail, and we huffed it out. But it was like my mind, because it was out of the normal, and it was like I didn't get in my reps, right, as an example. I don't really do reps. Well, I do reps, but not the same as like a bodybuilder or something like that. But anyways, my mind, it judged, and it clung onto that, and it's like, well, you'll do better next week.
Yeah.
It was just,
you didn't make it this week.
You didn't make it this week.
Meanwhile, for 45 minutes, you're carrying bundles of wood through this trail, like the heaviest, hardest exercise possible. Right. And you push yourself in that way harder than you would have pushed yourself at the gym, because you had to.
Because I had to.
Right? You had to do it. but it's the expectations we hold on ourselves. It's the prison, man, and it's like if you scroll a bit too long on Instagram, can you forgive yourself, see what you're doing, and move in the right direction? Or do you hate yourself for doing it, put it away, you're mindless of the whole thing, and then you come back to it later and you're stuck in a loop because you can't actually get out of that cycle, right?
That's another interesting one. I find myself sometimes too, like, feel like it was like a therapy session or something. Like, you guys all know.
Michael's life is falling apart.
Michael's life. That's what this podcast is about. But yeah, like sometimes I will be like on social media, like I know I consciously become aware. I'm like, oh shit, I'm going down that rabbit hole of of scrolling, of like, and then I'll start to like go into that shame spiral a little bit, and then I start to like, then I have to like do a self-talk, like a self-talk of like, sometimes it can be up to like 5-10 minutes after, of like rationalizing and be like, okay, it's okay, like you just did this time, you'll get back on track. And then this can happen several times in a day sometimes. And there's days that are better than others, but like, it's like this inner perfectionist inside. And it's so interesting. It's like crazy. Because like in an ideal world, maybe you could just like dive right back into being like, okay, I fucked up, went down the rabbit hole.
Time to be productive.
Time to be productive, but not have to do that like 10 minutes of self-talk and be like, it's okay. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, and I find it ties back into nature. Like when you get back out into nature and you see how slow everything is. Now, you look at the forest and it's just there and it's not fucking moving and it's perfect and it's quiet and everything's beautiful and you're like, oh yeah, all the crazy just existed in me. Mm-hmm. The crazy's not here. The crazy's just in me. And it detaches you from that. Whenever I'm mindlessly scrolling, it's because I'm not grounded. Like that's what it is. I'm up here trying to solve problems. Maybe if I can find it, soothe myself, post something, what's going to get me famous, what's going to do and none of that is heart-centered. None of that is grounded in purpose, right? It's all just, it's mustard shit.
It's all the mustard shit.
We'll put in some B-roll of Matthew McConaughey.
Mustard shit.
It'll explain it all. I'm going to change the battery on the big camera though, quick. But yeah, man, I think it's important to come back to stillness, have a good conversation. Even think about that, not having your phone for an hour and just having a conversation, right? We are broadcasting to the internet, so we're kind of cheating, but...
We haven't been looking at our phones, you know, I mean, we've been very conscious with each other.
Exactly.
Conscious with all of you.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important, man. I think it's the real shit.
Yeah. By the way, I don't want this to sound like righteous, you know, like, but this is I think we've explained enough vulnerability too, that like, you know, that's what Razor State is about, I think partly too, is like sharing the authenticity of this journey, and that, you know, we get it right sometimes, but not all the time.
Of course, and we know the direction we're going, but we're people too. People too. Right? And we're just like you. We're just like you folks that are out there. And we're trying to figure it out. And we're going to keep accumulating just good information on this topic. And like I said, we're going to help build a toolkit for you to have so that you can vibe up, so that it's easy and you can come to our channel. And again, none of this is monetized. We don't plan on monetizing this. Come here to tune up, to listen to some good music, to post a comment, to follow along. We're going to be active in the community and ask your questions, and we will answer what we can, and people will participate, and what we build will be beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it's a start, that's for sure. But I think a big problem I have and a lot of people have is like, you think, well, I can't produce something until it's done. And that's just, it's such a bad way of looking at it, right? Like Joe's original podcast. He's just sitting on a couch with much worse camera quality than this, worse audio quality than this, and they're talking about kind of nothing, and they're getting momentum. They're getting a start, and now it's the most popular media production in the world, right?
$100 million, baby.
100 million, baby. Those big contracts. But yeah, man, I'm stoked that we've kind of started these conversations, and I'm excited to see where they go.
This is the official
number one. You guys were here first. Raise your state. There's going to be links below in the video of the artist that we played at the start, so you can listen to some incredible music. And we're going to chop this up and put some stuff on Instagram and the TikTok and the Trilla. We're going to hit every platform we can just to have fun and just to shine a light, because we want you to follow along, and we're going to give everything we can. And the mission is very simple. It's the words on the door. It's raise your state.
Big love. Should we leave the people with some more music? Do we have something that we could exit out with?
I think we should end with the same song and just play it and fade it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's how we came into this world. And that's how we're going to leave.
I feel like this song could almost be, like Air could be, like that song, that birth.
Yeah, it could have been God's song.
Man, if my mom had given birth to me with this song, oh.
We'd all be more handsome. We'd have bigger brains. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for following along. Again, this is number 1. We're going to keep doing this and getting tighter and sharper and better to bring you the very best content to help you raise your state. So have a good one. Love. Peace.
Big love, everybody.
It's good chatting with you, Michael.
Great chatting.
To many more.
Many more.
See you, folks.